it's getting to a point where Republicans are seemingly beginning to sour on these Trump tariffs. I have reports from ABC. Republicans are going public with their growing worries about Trump's tariffs. There was also a bipartisan bill introduced in, I believe, the Senate that was co-sponsored by Chuck Grassley along with another Democratic representative. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting their name. That basically allows Congress to take back the power of implementing tariffs. What's lost in this translation is that Donald Trump may or may not have the executive authority to even do what he's doing. I mean, not that it fucking matters, but the president is not allowed to unilaterally implement tariffs. However, he skirted that by using the fentanyl crisis and the opioid epidemic, because then it becomes an issue of national security. And when there are national security issues, the president can effectively do whatever the fuck they want. But let's go ahead. Let's listen to this reporting from ABC.
Support is growing on Capitol Hill for a proposal to rein in President Trump's authority over tariffs. ABC's Perry Russum has more on that. Perry, good morning.
Andrew, good morning to you. More Republicans in Congress are now breaking with the president and his tariff policy. You have Axios now reporting at least 12 House Republicans are now considering a proposal from Nebraska Congressman Don Bacon. His new bill would require Congress to approve new tariffs. An identical bill has already been proposed in the Senate, where Republicans say they are feeling pressure from voters.
President Trump is a little bit now he's like the pit bull that caught the car. What are you going to do with the car?
Could you imagine being a Republican president and losing John Kennedy? That's like if Shannon Sharp turned on LeBron. You have to be doing some actually horrible or some actually potentially horrible shit to get this fucking guy to say, actually, I don't think that the president is behaving in the most rational manner. Now, I will say, John Kennedy does represent Louisiana, and Louisiana being a Trump district, guess what? They're going to feel the effects of these tariffs. They're going to feel the effects of these tariffs just as much, if not more, than someone like me who lives in New York or who lives in Massachusetts or who lives in Oklahoma. Any elected representative with a fucking spine would be speaking out against this because it will directly harm their constituents.
He's got these foreign nations up to the lick log, as they say on a farm. What do we do next?
The other thing in management consulting,
has anyone? I'm sorry, this is off topic. Who the fuck has ever used that expression before? Please let me know. Maybe it's because I'm a city slicker, but I've never fucking heard anything about a fucking lick log.
we like to focus on is this concept of one throat to choke. In other words, when you're finally taking a look at a strategy, someone has to own it. Whose throat do I get to choke if this proves to be wrong?
And that comment from Senator Tillis came during a hearing with President Trump's top trade negotiator, who says Trump's tariffs are getting results, with dozens of countries now coming to the negotiating table. But two of Trump's key advisors are publicly feuding over tariffs. You have Elon Musk, who opposes them, calling Peter Navarro, who is in favor of them, a moron for comments he made about the production of Teslas. The White House is dismissing the back and forth, saying boys will be boys, and at the same time giving credit to Trump for hiring advisors who have different viewpoints.
Elon, for obvious reasons, is against these tariffs because he has
the entire world is calling the United States.
He has heavy business interests in China, of course, with manufacturing Teslas. He also had a comment earlier about a free trade zone with Europe. He, however, talks about that on white nationalist grounds, which fucking ridiculous. But it's easy to see why Elon does not want these tariffs against China to go through, because it will directly hurt his business. Even Teslas that are manufactured in the United States get some percentage of their parts from overseas. Peter Navarro is a literal schizophrenic economist. He is one of Donald Trump's premier economic policy advisors. He's authored a bunch of books, and in these books cites this person named Ron Vera. Ron Vera is an anagram of Peter Navarro. Why the fuck is this brain-broken goober allowed to be in Donald Trump's ear? Like, this is fucking ridiculous. Of course, from the standpoint of White House infighting, I love it. I think it's great content, and eventually Donald Trump is going to get tired of both of them. Now, this, and by this I mean the Republicans in Congress speaking out against Donald Trump, is a new phenomenon. There really haven't been many people in Congress who have opposed these tariffs from the beginning, unfortunately. And I at least once a quarter I do this. Rand Paul, pardon me, and Ron Paul as well. They, obviously, Ron Paul is not in Congress anymore, but Rand Paul has been very, very staunch in his opposition to tariffs, and unfortunately, he is right. But he's one of those few Republicans where, once again, every 4 months he'll say a thing, and I'm like, damn, he's right. We're in agreement here. So he's at least principled in that regard. All of these other Congress people are too in the fucking bubble to recognize from the beginning that this would have disastrous impacts on their community. And it's not even the tariffs in isolation. Let's not forget, there is also the Republicans' agenda of advancing that big, beautiful bill, that big, beautiful tax bill that cuts Medicaid and Medicare and also Social Security. But, folks, it is going to be a continuation of my tax plan from my first term. And that is, of course, that's right, the Republican budget agenda, where they're going to cut virtually every Social Security and do further tax cuts for the rich. We are looking at a transfer of wealth that is absolutely astronomical, in conjunction with these tariffs that, if they're implemented, will lead to a recession and possibly even a depression. I've seen reports that, some investment banks are predicting a recession in 2025, potentially even 2026, and that we're looking at a job loss of potentially 2 million. 2 million. All because Donald Trump has this fucking insane boner for tariffs. I don't understand how he became married to this idea. I think that he's just a dumbass. Realistically, that's all it is. I just think that he is a very stupid person with a fucking baby brain. There's credence to this in this tweet that was posted. The tweet reads, "Gary Cohn, the prince that was promised." This is an excerpt from Gary Cohn where this is a fucking conversation with him and Donald Trump about domestic manufacturing. Quote, why don't we manufacture things at home, Lindsay asked. We're a manufacturing country. Of course, the United States manufactured things, but the reality did not match the vision in Trump's mind. The president clung to an outdated view of America: locomotives, factories with huge smokestacks, factories with huge smokestacks. It's just a bunch of baristas with blue hair, a bunch of non-binary baristas with blue hair stacked on top of each other. Cohn assembled every piece of economic data available to show that American workers did not aspire to work in assembly factories. Each month, Cohn brought Trump the latest job openings and labor turnover survey called JOLTS, conducted by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. He realized he was being an asshole by rubbing it in because each month was basically the same, but he didn't care. Mr. President, can I show this to you? Cohn fanned out the pages of data in front of the president. See, the biggest levers of jobs, people leaving voluntarily, was from manufacturing. I don't get it, Trump said. Cohn tried to explain, quote, I can sit in a nice office with air conditioning and a desk or stand on my feet 8 hours a day. Which would you do for the same pay? Cohn added, people don't want to stand in front of a 2,000-degree blast furnace. People don't want to go into coal mines and get black lung. For the same or equal dollars, they're going to choose something else. Trump wasn't buying it. Several times, Cohn just asked the president, quote, why do you have these views? I just do. I've had these views for 30 years. Can you believe it? That's such a long time. 30 years. Wow. That doesn't mean they're right, Cohn said. I had the view for 15 years I could play professional football. It doesn't mean I was right. When we look at the areas of this country, the Rust Belt, in particular, Appalachia, that has been ravaged by the outsourcing that has gone on in this country over the last 50, 60 years. These folks don't necessarily want coal plants to reopen in their community. They just want something to reopen in that community. They want a business to reopen in that community that can provide a nice paycheck, quality benefits, and union representation. It could be a fucking solar plant, right? It could be a solar panel manufacturing facility. And they would love solar. It's not about bringing back coal mining in particular, but it is about bringing back quality employment and a quality of life to these communities. These people aren't necessarily resentful that the coal plant is gone. They're resentful that their job is gone. They're resentful that they live in poverty because some asshole in a fucking suit and tie decided to take their job overseas, also he could improve his bottom line and get a larger compensation package. That is another fundamental disagreement or another fundamental disconnect that the Trump administration has. They look at onshoring jobs as a way to further accumulate capital, whereas somebody like myself wants to onshore jobs to provide high quality, high paying union jobs to these places that have been ravaged by neoliberalism. I don't give a fuck about the bottom line of these corporations. But the Trump administration, if they did onshore more jobs, they would do everything in their power to make sure that these people who work in these factories get the absolute bare minimum, which obviously is wrong. I don't think that there's any justification for that. But again, you as the president cannot just think that the free market is going to magically build fucking factories all throughout Ohio and West Virginia, all because you put tariffs on China and Vietnam. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Capitalism will always take the option that is better for the profit margin. If Apple can make more money, or if Apple can save more money by absorbing these tariffs than by onshoring their manufacturing, they're going to do it.